Pennsylvania has incredible things to offer. Colonial history that goes to the bedrock of the country, landscapes ranging from the Delaware River Valley to the Allegheny Mountains, a food culture that produces some of the most distinct regional food traditions in the eastern United States. But it also has some places that charge real money, create real expectations, and deliver a real nothing. These are the 7 overrated attractions in Pennsylvania. Tourists feel scammed. Number 7. The Big Mac Museum, North Huntingdon, Pennsylvania. A museum dedicated to the Big Mac sounds like the kind of thing America invents to amuse itself. And in this case, America has not disappointed. The Big Mac Museum restaurant sits in a McDonald's location in North Huntingdon, Pennsylvania, and is built around the claim that the Big Mac was invented nearby. Specifically, that Jim Delegati, a McDonald's franchise owner in the region, created the sandwich in 1967 at his Uniontown, Pennsylvania location. There is already a problem embedded in that origin story. The Big Mac was not invented at the North Huntingdon location where the museum now exists. It was invented at Delegati's Uniontown restaurant, which is approximately 60 miles away. So the museum celebrating the creation of the Big Mac is not actually located where the Big Mac was created. This is a detail that the museum does not advertise particularly loudly. The centerpiece of the museum is a 14-foot replica of a Big Mac. The exhibits focus on the history of the sandwich, how the 2 all-beef patties formula became a cultural institution, and the sandwich's global spread since McDonald's rolled it out nationally in 1968. There are displays, photographs, and memorabilia. There is a functioning McDonald's attached, where visitors can eat a Big Mac if the exhibits have inspired them to do so. There are also historical photographs of Delegati and the early franchise days of McDonald's in western Pennsylvania. Most visitors describe it as a 5 to 10 minute experience, wrapped inside a corporate marketing exercise. One reviewer summarized it as a promotional gimmick, more than a genuine attraction worth your travel time. The museum is free to enter, which is appropriate given what you're getting. The food at the attached McDonald's is exactly what McDonald's food is everywhere. Here is the most honest way to think about the Big Mac Museum. If you are already driving on the Pennsylvania Turnpike near North Huntingdon and you need a lunch stop, it's a mildly amusing detour. If someone told you to add it to a Pennsylvania itinerary and you drove out of your way specifically to see a 14-foot Big Mac sculpture inside a working fast food restaurant, you have been given bad advice. The burger statue is notable. The museum around it is not. It exists because McDonald's wanted a marketing installation in a franchise location. And Jim Delegati's real story, a franchise owner who created the most successful fast food sandwich in history by adding a second beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun, and then had to fight McDonald's corporate for several years to get the sandwich added to the national menu, is actually more interesting than the museum built to honor it. Delegati died in 2016 at age 98. The McDonald's corporate history of the Big Mac is genuinely interesting, and you can read about it in about 15 minutes online. The museum will take you slightly longer and cost you the drive. Number 6. Pat's King of Steaks and Geno's Steaks, Philadelphia. Before half of Philadelphia's residents write in to protest, yes, Pat's and Geno's are institutions. Pat's King of Steaks has been operating since Pat Olivieri supposedly invented the cheesesteak in 1930. The standard story holds that Olivieri, a hot dog vendor, put beef on a hot dog roll one day, and a cab driver asked for one, and a Philadelphia institution was born. Geno's opened directly across the street from Pat's in 1966, started a rivalry that has outlasted most things in that city, and the two shops have glared at each other across the intersection of 9th Street and Passyunk Avenue for nearly 60 years. Both establishments have been visited by presidents, celebrities, and Super Bowl champions. The intersection is a genuine cultural landmark. The pilgrimage to these two establishments is one of the most aggressively marketed tourist experiences in Philadelphia. Every travel guide, every food tourism article, every what to do in Philly listicle sends visitors directly to this intersection in South Philadelphia. The lines can stretch around the block on summer days. The experience is positioned as the definitive way to eat a cheesesteak in the city where cheesesteaks were born. The problem, which Philadelphians will tell you the moment you ask, is that the cheesesteaks at Pat's and Geno's are not actually among the best in the city. The meat can be processed and uniform in a way that neighborhood shops avoid. The bread can be soggy by the time you've navigated the ordering line. The ordering system, you must say wit or wit out to indicate onions, order in the right sequence, and do it quickly or face the performative disapproval of the counter staff, is more theater than quality control. Pat's uses Cheese Whiz as the standard cheese, and while Cheese Whiz on a cheesesteak is a legitimate and traditional choice, first-time visitors who expected something more artisanal sometimes find the bright orange processed cheese sauce jarring. The prices have increased steadily as the location's tourist significance has grown, and the tourist-to-local ratio at the intersection skews heavily toward visitors. On a typical summer weekend, the crowd at 9th and Passyunk is not meaningfully different from the crowd at any tourist destination in any major American city. Multiple food writers and experienced Philadelphia travelers consistently report that superior cheesesteaks are available at other city establishments. D'Alessandro's in Roxborough is regularly cited by food publications as among the city's finest. John's Roast Pork in South Philadelphia has been named one of America's best sandwiches by national food media. Steve's Prince of Steaks in the Northeast has dedicated regulars who wouldn't trade their order for Pat's or Gino's on their best day. None of these requires a 45-minute wait or the anxiety of performing the ordering ritual correctly. Everyone told me Pat's was the place to go, wrote one visitor on a travel forum. I waited in line for 40 minutes in July heat and got a sandwich that was fine, just fine. My hotel's room service would have been more memorable. The rivalry is genuine, the history is real, and if a manageable line and a cheesesteak are your goal, either shop will deliver a decent version of the sandwich. But walking away, convinced you've experienced the pinnacle of Philadelphia's food culture, that's the tourist apparatus doing exactly what tourist apparatuses do. Selling the story of a place rather than the actual best of a place. The story of Pat's and Gino's is worth knowing. The food is not necessarily worth the pilgrimage. If you're in South Philadelphia and want the real thing, ask a Philadelphian who actually eats cheesesteaks regularly. You'll get a different answer than any national travel guide gives you, and the answer you get will be better. That's true of most food cities and most signature dishes. The places that deserve to be famous for a sandwich are rarely the places that are famous for a sandwich. Philadelphia's cheesesteak culture runs deep through the entire city, through dozens of neighborhood shops and corner stands that have never been in a travel magazine. You just have to find them, which is the work that makes the meal actually mean something. Number 5. The Poconos, Monroe, Pike, Carbon, and Wayne counties. The Pocono Mountains region in northeastern Pennsylvania has been marketed to couples and families from the New York and New Jersey metropolitan areas as a romantic escape and outdoor paradise for decades. The heart-shaped bathtubs at the old resort properties became a genuine cultural symbol of 1970s and 1980s honeymoon culture. Caesar's Palace Resort in the Poconos installed the first heart-shaped whirlpool tub in the country in 1963, and the concept became so associated with the region that the Poconos briefly had a reputation as the honeymoon capital of the East Coast. The honeymoon resort heyday is largely over. The classic couples resorts that defined the Poconos' romantic reputation from the 1960s through the 1980s, including the all-inclusive resorts operated by Cove Haven Entertainment Resorts, which ran Cove Haven, Pocono Palace, and Pocono Gardens, closed their doors in 2017, ending a 50-year run that had made going to the Poconos a shorthand for romantic getaway in the New York area. The iconic heart-shaped hot tubs and mirrored ceilings that had become cultural touchstones ended up auctioned off or demolished. What replaced them is a more conventional resort market that competes across price points rather than offering the distinct, kitschy, deliberately romantic identity the old resorts had. The ski situation is worth addressing directly. The Pocono Ski Mountains, Camelback, Blue Mountain, Shawnee, and Jack Frost / Big Boulder offer accessible skiing for the New York-Philadelphia corridor, and for beginner to intermediate skiers who cannot or will not travel to New England or the Rockies, they serve a real purpose. Getting kids on skis in a 2-hour drive from Manhattan without the expense of Vermont airfare and ski resort hotels is a legitimate reason to go. For families in that situation, the Pocono ski industry makes sense, but they are also increasingly expensive relative to the experience they offer. Vertical drops in the Poconos range from about 500 to just over 1,000 feet. For comparison, a mid-tier Vermont ski area offers 2,000 feet or more of vertical, generally in better natural snow conditions. Pocono Mountains rely heavily on snowmaking, which keeps them operating but creates ice conditions that more experienced skiers find frustrating. Lift tickets at the major Pocono Mountains during peak season now routinely run $70 to $100 or more for a day's skiing, a price point that stops being clearly good value when you factor in the relatively short runs, the artificial snow surfaces, and the crowds that arrive from the metro areas on holiday weekends. The region's proximity to New York City and Philadelphia, about 90 minutes from Midtown Manhattan in light traffic, which is not the traffic conditions that exist on Friday afternoons in the summer, means it draws enormous visitor volumes. The traffic on Route 80 heading into the Poconos on a summer Friday is a specific kind of purgatory familiar to anyone who has attempted it. The same geographic convenience that makes the Poconos an easy choice also makes it congested, overpriced during peak periods, and frequently booked solid for anything resembling a popular holiday weekend. Reviews of major Pocono resorts frequently describe outdated facilities, prices that have climbed faster than quality improvements, and a feeling that the region has been coasting on a reputation built during a different era of American travel. For a truly scenic Pennsylvania mountain escape with better lodging, fewer crowds, and comparable outdoor recreation, the Laurel Highlands region in southwestern Pennsylvania, anchored by falling water, Frank Lloyd Wright's masterpiece of residential architecture, and Ohiopyle State Park's world-class whitewater, consistently delivers more than the Poconos at equivalent price points. The Poconos are fine if you're nearby and need a weekend option. They're rarely the best use of a dedicated travel day for someone with the option to go elsewhere. Number 4. The Liberty Bell, Philadelphia. Here it is, the monument that defines Philadelphia in the national imagination, the symbol of American freedom, the cracked bell that over 1 million visitors per year stand in a security line to view from behind protective glass. The Liberty Bell's history is genuinely significant. The bell was commissioned in 1751 by the Pennsylvania Provincial Assembly for the new State House, now known as Independence Hall. Cast at London's Whitechapel Bell Foundry, it arrived in Philadelphia in 1752, cracked during a test strike, and was recast twice by local metalworkers John Pass and John Stowe. Their names remain embossed on the bell. On July 8, 1776, the bell was among those rung to announce the first public reading of the Declaration of Independence from the State House yard. After the British occupied Philadelphia in 1777, the bell was transported to Allentown, Pennsylvania, where it was hidden under the floorboards of Zion's Reformed Church to prevent the British from melting it down for cannon metal. It was returned to Philadelphia after the British withdrew and remained in use until it cracked significantly during a Washington's birthday celebration in 1846 and was silenced permanently. The bell wasn't called the Liberty Bell until the 1830s, when abolitionist groups adopted it as a symbol of their cause, printing the name in anti-slavery pamphlets. It moved from Independence Hall to a nearby pavilion in 1976 for the bicentennial, and finally to its current home at Liberty Bell Center in 2003. All of that history is real, documented, and meaningful. The experience of visiting the bell is something else. Admission to the Liberty Bell Center is free. To get in, you stand in an outdoor line. In whatever weather Philadelphia is offering that day, wait through airport-style security screening, and walk through a long hallway of interpretive exhibits before reaching the bell itself, which sits behind glass at the end of the passage. You view it, you take a photo, you leave. The bell weighs 2,080 pounds and measures 12 feet in circumference around its lip. It does not look especially large behind the glass, and most visitors' primary experience is trying to position themselves for a photograph that includes Independence Hall visible through the window behind the bell. "It's a flippin' bell," wrote one Yelp reviewer, with a bluntness that captures the gap between expectation and reality for many visitors. The comparison to the Mona Lisa, itself famous for disappointing visitors in person due to its small size, and the crowd distance between viewer and artwork, appears repeatedly in Liberty Bell reviews on TripAdvisor. Multiple visitors have described the experience using the same phrasing: one of those things you have to do once and would not do again. Others call it an obligatory checkmark, a box to tick, a monument whose historical significance cannot be felt through a glass wall from behind a security perimeter. Philly Voice, the city's own local news outlet, published a guide advising tourists that everyone who knows Philadelphia knows to skip going inside the Liberty Bell Center and simply view it from outside through the glass walls, which is entirely possible, free of the security line. and gives you essentially the same visual experience. When local media is actively counseling tourists to skip the indoor experience at the city's most iconic landmark, that's a consensus worth hearing. The deeper problem isn't the bell itself. It's the structural impossibility of delivering a proportional emotional experience around a single cracked object. The history attached to this bell is enormous. The bell is not. That gap never narrows regardless of how well the exhibit is designed. If you're in Old City anyway, Independence Hall, literally steps away, is a genuinely powerful experience. The room where the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were debated, drafted, and signed has an atmosphere that photographs cannot fully convey. That's the visit worth prioritizing. The Liberty Bell can be seen through the glass from outside. Save your time in the line for something that will actually move you. Number 3, Amish Country, Lancaster County. Lancaster County's Amish community draws roughly 8 million visitors per year, making it one of the most visited rural destinations in the United States. The appeal is understandable. In a world of relentless connectivity, a community that has maintained a fundamentally different relationship with technology and modernity carries genuine fascination. The rolling farmland is genuinely beautiful in all seasons. The farm-to-table food, when you find the real version of it, is outstanding. Shoofly pie, chicken pot pie, hand-rolled noodles, and farm-fresh dairy are legitimately worth traveling for. The craftsmanship embedded in Amish furniture making and quilting traditions represents a standard of handwork that has almost no equivalent in mass-produced American culture. The problem is that most of what visitors actually encounter in Lancaster County's tourist corridor is not any of those things. It's buggy ride operators who have been running the same circuit for decades, souvenir shops selling mass-produced items dressed up with Amish imagery, restaurant buffets labeled Amish style that are serving the same commercial-grade food you'd find at any tourist restaurant in any state, and tour operators who have repackaged the existence of an actual religious community into a structured entertainment product. The commercialization of Lancaster County's Amish community has been documented by sociologists and journalists for decades. The experience many tourists describe involves being bussed past farms on organized tours in ways that treat the families living and working there as background scenery rather than people with an interest in privacy. Taking photographs from car windows of people who, in many cases, hold religious objections to being photographed is an activity that several Lancaster County tour operators nonetheless facilitate. One travel review noted that the tourist infrastructure along Route 30 and the main commercial corridors exploits Amish culture rather than respectfully sharing it with visitors, creating an atmosphere that feels more carnival-like than educational or peaceful. The core frustration is the same one that applies to many cultural tourism experiences. The commercialized version of the thing is a poor substitute for actual engagement with it. The Lancaster Central Market in downtown Lancaster, an indoor farmers market operating since 1730, making it one of the oldest continuously operating public markets in the United States, offers locally produced food at fair prices in an environment that belongs to the community rather than to tourism. The roadside farm stands operated by Amish and Mennonite families along the secondary roads of the county provide vegetables, baked goods, and jams at prices that reflect actual agricultural economics rather than tourist markup. They require a little more effort to reach than the restaurants next to the pretzel factory on Route 30, but they deliver something proportionally more real. And they don't involve watching someone else's private family life from a tour bus window while a guide provides narration. That part matters, and it's rarely discussed by the operators who profit from staging it. One final note worth adding for anyone planning a southern Pennsylvania trip: Gettysburg, in adjacent Adams County, is sometimes bundled into Lancaster itineraries. The battlefield itself, 6,000 acres of preserved Civil War landscape maintained by the National Park Service, is extraordinary and absolutely worth your time. The commercial tour industry that has grown up around Gettysburg, however, is a separate matter. Reviews of certain private tour operators describe guides with agendas that prioritize Confederate mythology over historical accuracy. Choosing a reputable tour operator in Gettysburg matters more than most tourists realize before they arrive. The National Park Service Rangers offer free and reliably accurate programming that no paid private tour has beaten in terms of historical integrity. Number 2. Eastern State Penitentiary, Philadelphia, during Halloween. Eastern State Penitentiary, the radial-style prison that operated from 1829 to 1971 in the Fairmount neighborhood of Philadelphia, is a genuinely extraordinary historical site. The architecture alone, Gothic Revival towers at the entrance, vaulted stone cell blocks radiating outward from a central hub like spokes on a wheel, the eerie and beautiful deterioration of a building left largely unrestored since the facility closed, makes it one of the most atmospheric spaces in the state. Al Capone was incarcerated there briefly in 1929 for carrying a concealed weapon, a stay short enough that he furnished his cell with carpets, oil paintings, a radio, and quality furniture, a detail the museum interprets with appropriate irony. The facility pioneered the concept of individual cell confinement as a philosophical approach to criminal rehabilitation. Each prisoner was kept in complete isolation, a practice that was considered progressive by some reformers and cruel by others. Charles Dickens visited in 1842 and wrote that solitary confinement is cruel and wrong, and that the mental anguish it produced was worse than any physical punishment. That visit from Dickens is documented. His objections were ignored for decades afterward. The museum is excellent when it's just the museum. The audio tour, narrated by Steve Buscemi, is thoughtful, detailed, and appropriately unsettling. The institution's programming around criminal justice reform is among the more substantive and self-aware public history work happening at any Pennsylvania attraction. The physical experience of walking through the deteriorating cell blocks, the crumbling plaster, the vines growing through collapsed ceilings in certain wings, the particular quality of light falling through small windows into 8-foot-wide cells, is genuinely moving in the way that only a place with this density of history and physical integrity can be. The Halloween Haunted House is a completely different matter. Terror Behind the Walls, the annual event that Eastern State runs from late September through early November, has grown into one of the Philadelphia area's most heavily marketed fall attractions. The event converts the prison's historical corridors into a multi-zone commercial haunted house experience, complete with theatrical lighting, sound effects, actors in elaborate costumes, and a ticketing structure that runs significantly higher than the regular museum admission, sometimes 2 or 3 times higher, with additional premium options layered on top. The problem is a fundamental identity conflict. Eastern State Penitentiary's historical significance comes from its sobriety, from the weight of what actually happened there to real people, over 142 years of operation. A fog machine haunted house set in those same corridors is not a companion experience to that history. It's a commercial product that borrows the building's atmosphere without engaging the history that created it. Reviews during Halloween season consistently describe crowds so dense that moving through the prison becomes physically difficult, the historical context entirely absent, and the price-to-experience ratio considerably worse than the regular museum visit. One travel piece described the combination of high costs, massive crowds, and intense haunted house marketing as capable of turning what could be a thoughtful museum visit into an exhausting tourist trap. Visit Eastern State any month except October. September and November are particularly good. The crowds thin considerably after the peak summer season. The building takes on a particular autumn quality in the light, and you get the full museum experience without the haunted house scaffolding obscuring what makes this place genuinely worth visiting. That version of Eastern State Penitentiary is among the best Pennsylvania has to offer. The Halloween version is a well-marketed product that happens to be set inside one of the state's most significant buildings. Number 1. Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. Named by cheapism as the most overrated tourist destination in Pennsylvania, Rivers Casino in Philadelphia occupies a stretch of waterfront along the Delaware River and positions itself as a gaming destination in a city that is most emphatically not a gaming city. Philadelphia is a city of history, food, sports, and neighborhoods. It has never been, and does not aspire to be, a gambling hub. That fundamental mismatch between what the city is and what a casino requires to succeed is the source of most of what's wrong with Rivers. That positioning is the problem. Philadelphia isn't Las Vegas. It isn't even Atlantic City, which is a 90-minute drive away, and at least has a beach, a boardwalk, and decades of accumulated casino culture behind it. Rivers Casino, formerly Sugar House Casino, which opened in 2010 before being rebranded, has reviews filled with complaints about slow service, a cramped and uninspiring physical layout, limited table game options, and a general atmosphere that feels more like a suburban slot parlor than an entertainment destination worth making a trip for. The casino opened in 2010 as Sugar House, one of the first facilities to open in Philadelphia proper after Pennsylvania legalized slot machines in 2004. The legal and regulatory history of Philadelphia casino gambling is a complicated story of legislative negotiation, community opposition, legal challenges, and shifting site locations. The Sugar House location along the Delaware waterfront was not the original plan, and the constraints imposed by the facility's footprint and the regulatory framework it operated under limited what could be built. The result was a casino that had fewer amenities, less floor space, and a more restricted selection of games than what major casino destinations elsewhere in the country offered. The waterfront location does have some appeal. Penn Treaty Park is nearby. The Delaware River provides views that the building's design doesn't always take full advantage of, and the neighborhood around the casino has developed over the years. But the casino itself is consistently described by visitors expecting a genuine gaming experience as a disappointing substitute for what they came to find. As Cheapism summarized it plainly, Philadelphia isn't Las Vegas. It isn't even Atlantic City, which is just an hour away, and tourists shouldn't go to the Rivers Casino expecting a high-rolling experience. Reviews are filled with complaints about slow service in a cramped, cheap-looking structure. That is not ambiguous feedback. Cramped, cheap-looking, slow service. These are not the words you want attached to the thing you're marketing as a tourism destination. Philadelphia has one of the great urban food scenes in the country. It has world-class art at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. It has the Barnes Foundation, which houses one of the most extraordinary private art collections ever assembled. 181 Renoirs, 69 Cézanne, 59 Matisse, plus African sculpture, American decorative arts, and ironwork, all arranged according to the radical curatorial vision of collector Albert Barnes. It has Reading Terminal Market, which has been operating since 1893 and remains one of the genuinely great indoor food markets in the country. It has the Italian market along South 9th Street, the city's immigrant neighborhood infrastructure, its music scene, and its sports culture. Rivers Casino is the wrong reason to go to Philadelphia. Almost anything else the city offers is a better reason. And this isn't close. If this saved you from a disappointing Pennsylvania trip or made you feel better about one you already took, hit the like button and subscribe. We post every week on what's actually worth your time and your money and what isn't.